So after I did the video, comes the train. Wait for the train to go. All right, so I did a video showing running through some of the things on my bike, my road bike, and there were a bunch of questions on that and comments. So what I'll do in this video is I'll go through some of those points, some of those questions, and yeah, let you know what's going on with that stuff. So so the big one, which everyone was asking, well, you know, what does the bike weigh? So the bike, as it stood there, in that configuration, is 7.23 kilos. So yeah, that's what the bike weighed. Yeah, I could get it, you know, to 6.8 with some light wheels, but what it weighed there, with the as it was exactly there, yeah, 7.2. The frame itself was a bit over 900 grams. Yeah, but as you could see from the build, there was, you know, I mean, you could go with weight weenie parts, you know, with brakes and lighter cranks and all this stuff, but you know, that bike is for riding, everyday riding. It's not a weight weenie bike. It's not a show bike or anything like that. It's just, bikes are for riding. Another question which sprung up was, where is the battery? So Shimano didn't make an internal battery for that generation of Di2. So so I did what I normally do. I just made one myself. So I got some lithium cells and made a pack and then dropped them down into the seat tube. So it's a large capacity, like a really high efficiency cells. So it lasts about twice as long as what a normal Shimano battery pack would last. Another common question was, why BB30? You know, doesn't that have all the problems? And it's just like, well, it does have problems, and I did a video on press fit bottom brackets and all the problems that they have. A lot of those problems, well, pretty much all those problems, stem from the tolerances of manufacture and the quality of manufacture, and when you're putting the thing together. So the way I make my BB30 bottom bracket shell out of carbon is it's molded on a mandrel in one piece, and so that mandrel's all been machined to a tolerance fit, and all the bearing seats are concentric, and so never had a problem. So I've done that with I've been doing that for a long time. You know, probably I built the first bike like that maybe in 2008 or something like that. So 10 years. Yeah, never had a problem. You know, still running original bearings. I run SKF bearings. I don't use bike industry bearings generally. You know, using high quality industrial bearings, never had a problem. So yeah, so that's why the BB30. And then I because I wanted to use that SRM crank, I custom made an Octolink axle. So I used a Durace Octolink axle and then machined some spacers to bring it up to the BB30 bearing seats. So the way it is, there's no shims or anything like it. It just sits in there. It sits perfectly, and as I said, never had a problem. So here comes another train. We've got morning peak hour here in Melbourne. A couple of questions on. I'll wait for the train to go. Yeah, questions on some aspects of the geometry and the position that I have on the bike. So the head tube length is 124 millimeters, which is really short. So the top tube length is 594 millimeters, which is quite long. So and my seat height, the seat height that I use is around 780 millimeters. So I've got long legs and long arms. So that's how the position has evolved. I'm also very flexible at the hips. Like I used to be an international rower, and I've maintained that flexibility through my core. I also run 180 mil long cranks as well. But yeah, you know, people say, oh, you know, at your age, you know, isn't that, I think the word was treacherous, and I find it comfortable. So, you know, the thing about position is you got to find what works for you. It's not what works for somebody else is irrelevant. So, you know, don't try and copy someone else's position. Find out what works for you. And so, if you don't know how to generate that position yourself, go to somebody like an experienced bike fitter who does know how to put you in the right position. So, what other questions? Yeah, about the tubing profiles, and you know, because it's a smaller section tubing compared to some of the frames, you know, the commercial frames, which have got these huge oversized sections. And you know, the question was, how do you get the stiffness using a smaller section? Well, you get the stiffness using a smaller section by using a higher grade fibre. So by using higher stiffness fibre, you generate more stiffness from that profile, as opposed to using a lower a lower stiffness fibre, and then having to get the stiffness by using a larger section. So so that, you know, that's the, it sort of evolved over time. So I've built quite a few of those frames, and using different layup configurations, and tubing and top. I changed the diameter on the top tube to get different stiffnesses as well. So the first frame I built was probably a whisker soft, which made it a really smooth ride. You know, it's like you could ride it all day over rough surfaces and be comfortable as. The second one I built was probably a whisker too stiff, and so you know, I found, like, after riding it for a while, my wrists were a little bit sore, just from the extra vibration, although you do adapt to that pretty quick. And so the third one, which was that one which I call it the Goldilocks one, because it's just right. So you know, I tweaked the layup from those first two to get the balance of those first two bikes. Another train. Yeah, and so that's, you know, that's how it's evolved. I don't have any empirical data. Another train. Pico here in Melbourne. It's going to be a beautiful day. Well, I think it's going to be probably a bit hot actually, but yeah, beautiful morning so far. But yeah, I don't have any empirical data, you know, like from a stiffness jig on all the other frames and how mine compares. I've ridden those other bikes, and they ride well. I'm happy with my bike, so yeah, you know, I'll probably just leave it at that. What else was there? I did have I had a list on a little post-it note. I just wrote down, like, little dot points for the questions, and I stuck it to my tripod, so it's just a little reminders. And and a gust of wind came and blew it off the tripod, and it just happens to be a drain, like with a grate on it, right down here, and it just sort of floated down like that, you know, paper when it catches in the wind, it just floats like that, and then it just went whoom, straight down the drain. And so it's right down in this drain with my little notes. Yeah, I mean, what are the odds of that? Anyway, but it happened. So anyway, well, I've probably spoken enough about that. Oh no, the other thing I wanted to talk about was, that's right, was the front derailleur hanger. Now I use a clamp-on front derailleur hanger, and you know, people say, oh, why would you use that? Like, you know, a braze-on type is much lighter. And I'll answer that by saying I've made my own braze-on clamps, and I don't like them actually. I repair a lot of them on commercial frames. You know, they break. They're not rigid enough. Yeah, all these factors. I don't think they work very well in a lot of cases. Some of them do. A lot of them don't. And so because the bike's made out of straight round tubes, I can use a clamp on, and that works really, really well. Yeah, it's a small weight penalty, but I'm more interested in reliability, particularly with the Di2 front derailleur. I've seen front derailleur hangers just ripped off the frame with the Di2. So having a good solid interface at that junction, you know, at that point, makes a lot of sense. So I have, you know, I felt when I did test like my own braze-on design in that area, and actually I had it was on that frame or another frame, I can't remember, but I actually then ground it off and then put the clamp on it, and noticed an improvement in shifting. So having a more rigid interface in that area made sense to me. So for the sake of, you know, an extra, you know, however many grams, I don't really care. It's reliability and function are critical. No point having the lightest bike in the world if you can't ride it. You know, if it breaks when you ride it, or you can't shift gear, or, you know, bikes are meant to be ridden, and you know, they're not meant just to be hung on the wall or hung on a set of scales or whatever. You know, go and ride the bike, and you know, and do Ks on it, and then tell me what works and what doesn't work. So anyway, I think yeah, without my list, I'm a little bit lost now. I think that's it. We'll leave it at that. I've spoken enough. Have a great day. We've got we'll be back in the office in the workshop next week, next Monday. Yeah, starting to do repairs and assessments and everything like that. Well, I've definitely been waffling on too much because my memory card just filled up, so I had to delete a couple of other, to clear up some memory, and then just film this ending. So, all right, we'll leave it at that, and have a great day. We'll see you again soon. Okay, bye.